been talking about suppliers and subs, let me go ahead and finish the discussion on how to deal with material suppliers, subs, and I'm also going to talk about how to deal with liens, which are very common in the construction industry. So let's start off dealing with material suppliers. Regarding material suppliers, I want you to understand the value of shopping your prices. I promise you, the more you shop, the more you bargain, the cheaper you will get it each and every single time. Sometimes I wonder if there's a stopping point. But in shopping prices, I want you to always get at least 3 bids, which I'll discuss in a few minutes. But when you shop prices, it's a natural tendency if you go to 2 supply houses, let's say for lumber, you'll get 2 bids back. I prefer you to get 3, but let's say you get 2 bids back. Well, no, let's go ahead and say you get 3 back. It's a natural tendency that you will go through those bids and you'll see that one supplier is cheaper on plywood than another one. Another supplier is cheaper on studs than another one, and so on and so forth. And you'll be kind of like the price patrol. You'll go through and you'll circle the cheapest items, with each supplier. And you'll think, well, I'll buy this and this over here and this over there. Well, I want you to understand something. This supplier may say, no, wait a minute. If you're not going to buy everything from me, I'm not going to sell it to you at that price. Just understand that. And I will tend to buy everything from one supplier. I know them, they know me, they give me good service. What I will do is I will shop my major ticket items like studs and plywood. And if you want to know what those major items are, those things that cost thousands of dollars, those are your major items. And I will shop those. And if I see I can get my plywood cheaper over at another supply house, I'll go to the supplier I deal with and I'll say, listen, I really do like you and I like doing business with you, but I can get my plywood over here for this price. And 9 times out of 10, they'll say, well, I'll match it. And that's all I want them to do, just match it. If they can't match it, I may go over here to another supplier to get my plywood and then get everything else from the company I deal with. When you go into a supply house, even Home Depot or Lowe's, they have a section that they call contractor sales. And I want you to get back and deal with those people in contractor sales. And if you want to go back there and tell them you're a builder, as far as I'm concerned, you are a builder. You'll know by the end of this program, you're going to know more than many other builders out there. But to be honest, I'd rather you just go back and tell them like it is. Just say, listen, I'm just getting started. This is my first home. I need you to give me a good price, and they will give you a good price because they want your business. But if you want to go back there and tell them you're a builder, go ahead. If you're in a state where they do not have a statewide licensing requirement for builders, then what I want you to do is the power of the written word. I want you to print up a little set of business cards and underneath your name, put there home builder or general contractor or whatever you want to put. And when you walk in there, before anything is said, just hand them your card. And that way it just cuts to the chase and they'll start quoting you builder's price without giving you any hassle. But even with the card, I'd hand them the card and say, listen, I'm just getting started. This is my first home and give me a good price, and they'll give you a good price. Most supply houses, they have individuals that are out in the field drumming up business. We call them outside salesmen. Some supply houses will not even quote you prices. They'll require you get in touch with the outside salesman for your area. But even if they don't require that, I want to know who the outside salesman is for my area, and that's who I want to contact, and that's who I want to deal with, because that is the person that's going to be able to hold your hand. They're going to be able to negotiate you the best price. They're going to be able to help you calculate quantities of material. They'll be able to give you names and phone numbers of people they recommend that install their products. And this is a great person to deal with on a regular basis. Now, let me tell you, there's a lot of outside salesmen out there that aren't worth a nickel, but for the most part, they can still, even if they're not worth a nickel, they can still give you some good information and possibly negotiate you a good price. But I am somewhat shocked at how many outside salesmen there are that just don't give a rip. And what a great opportunity for those of you that, if the market's good especially, to just a great opportunity for you. If you return calls and follow up and stay on top of things, because some of these outside salesmen just do not do it. But even if they're just not worth a plug nickel, I still need them to calculate quantities for me. I need to have someone I can call and kind of complain to if something's not done right, and kind of be my go-between between the company and me, and give me names and numbers of people I need. So I very important earlier, person I always want you to get at least 3 bids. If you don't get 3 bids, you will not get give yourself the benefit of the doubt. You will never learn if a price is good unless you get 3 bids. That person in contractor sales, they'll put their arm around you and say, sure, I'll give you builder's discount. But you don't really know if they're giving you a builder's price unless you get at least 3 bids. So develop this habit of getting 3 bids in your personal life. When you go buy toothpaste, get 3 bids. Of course, you'll drive everybody crazy, but it will just permeate through you and to where you just automatically do it on everything. One thing I want to just touch on again real quick, just so I'm crystal clear with you on how to do this. I want you to get preferably 3 bids from 3 separate salespeople that's listing quantity. And I'm talking, let's say, for framing material. After you get these 3 bids, I want you to sit down and compare all 3. And what you're going to notice is that one supplier is going to have something that another one did not, because they either forgot it or they normally don't, maybe they don't carry it or handle it or something like that. And what I want you to do is combine those 3 and just make sure everybody is kind of comparing apples with apples. And then what I would like you to do is take the highest bid, and again, make sure everything's included in this bid. And I want you to list everything. You could just take the highest bid and then add anything that the highest bid may have forgotten. Cut off the prices, and just photocopy it and cut off the prices and send that bid back to all 3 suppliers and have them to put their price on it. If you want to re-itemize everything yourself and then send it back and have everybody put their price on it, then that's what I would do. And then whoever has the lowest price, that's who I will negotiate with and probably deal with. But that way, everyone is comparing apples with apples. They're comparing the same quantity, the same quality of material. Now, I want to stress this. You're going to see differences between 2 bids in the way they calculate quantities. And you would think, well, why is that the case? I don't know why it turns out that way. Unless you hire a professional to go ahead and figure all the quantities and you use that as your baseline, you could do that. But if you're not going to hire the professional and you're going to have the supplier calculate it, then go with the highest bid. And when I say highest, what I mean is the bid with the highest or most quantity, not price. Cut off the prices and resubmit it back to everybody and say, okay, put the prices down, and then to the one you cut the price off on, just tell them to reprice it because you're trying to narrow this down. And then that way everybody is quoting the same thing. And then whoever's the cheapest, that's who you're going to go with on the total price, But all the quantities should be the same with all three suppliers. And I hope that makes sense. When you're talking to salesmen over the phone, I want you to tell them to fax you or email you any of their quotes. Verbal communication is not good in this industry. They need to fax you or email you a quote on what they're telling you. Because if they don't live up to that, that's your only recourse to go back to the supplier for credit, is to have that written quote via fax or email from the outside salesman, for example. When you're talking to a salesman, always ask how long the price will be good and will it go up soon. So many times I bought something on Wednesday that went up on Tuesday. And I say, man, why didn't you tell me? Well, you didn't ask. Boy, that irritates me. Learn to keep a job diary. Learn to keep a job diary. Start writing down all your phone conversations, who you talked with, and what they quoted you. Because so many times I've driven to a supply house, I get to the supply house, I go in there to pick up something, and when they give it to me, they quote me a price differently than I heard on the telephone. And I'll say, now, wait a minute, y'all quoted me such and such a price. And they'll say, well, who told you that? And I'll think, well, I don't remember the man's name. Well, you might as well forget it. But if you open your job diary up and you show where you wrote down, here's where Mr. Smith quoted me this price over the telephone, you would have thought Mr. Smith had signed that page in blood and had it notarized. I've never had it fail me. But you don't have Mr. Smith's name and what he quoted you, and you might as well forget it. So keep that job diary, writing down your conversations, who you talked with, what you said to them. When you start out in this industry, it's very easy to receive an open account. It's when you become a slow payer or a no payer, you start having a problem. But I tell you, this is one of the craziest industries I've ever seen. I've called supply houses up on the phone. They didn't know me from Adam's house cat. And I would need thousands of dollars worth of material. And over the phone, I'd say, will you bill me? And they say, yeah, do you have a construction loan? Yeah. Well, what's your phone number and mailing address? And they would do it over the telephone and send thousands of dollars worth of material out to the job site. I mean, it is absolutely crazy. So when you start out, I want you to open as many accounts as you can, because there's a lot of things that can happen to you that you feel like you have no control over. For example, you order a large load of framing lumber and they deliver it to the job site. The framing carpenter does not show up as he said he would. And all of a sudden it starts raining for 2 weeks. And time goes on, and it's now time to pay for that material. The bank is not going to pay you for that material till it's installed in most cases. So because of the slow up on the carpenter, the rain, you have not installed it, you haven't received the money from the bank. It's now time to pay for that material. You go into the supply house with hat in hand. You tell them this sad and terrible story. They understand, they're sympathetic, they're in the construction business, and they close your account. Now it's hard to get an open account somewhere else because you've been closed down with a supplier. So open as many accounts as you can, so if they shut you down with supplier A, you can go to supplier B to get the material you need to complete the home. Now, I'm not telling this for you to play some kind of silly game. I want you to get the home built, get the money, get everybody paid. But I'm telling you, there's a lot of things that can happen you feel like you have no control over. Another good reason I want you to have an open account is with most open accounts, whatever you buy there, they will sell to you at a builder's discount, which is normally better than retail. And in most supply houses, if you pay them by a certain date, usually the 10th of the following month, they will give you an additional discount, and it's normally 1.5% to 2%, which on large ticket items turns into a nice little discount. Now, always ask for this discount. If I pay you by the 10th of the month, will you give me a discount? Sure, we will. If you don't ask, you won't receive. Now, if you're dealing with a supply house and you don't have an open account, if you're cash up front or COD, always ask for a discount. Sometimes the discount for cash is greater than 2%. It may be like 5% or more. So ask them. If I pay you cash up front, will you give me a discount? We sure will. Well, thank you. Again, if you don't ask, you won't receive. But I'm telling you, even though the discount for cash may be greater than, let's say, 2%, I still want you to work on an open account. For several reasons, here's one of them. If they send you a bad load of material, which happens all the time, you have much more leverage getting them back out there and picking it up if you still owe them the money than if you've given them all your cash. So if they ship you a bad load of material, and let me tell you, your common horse sense is going to tell you whether or not you've got a good load or bad load of material. So if they send you a bad load of material and it just doesn't look good to you, ask the subs on the job what they think about it. They may say, well, I hate to tell you, but this is as good as you're going to get in today's market. Well, then you got to decide if you can live with it. Or the sub may say, boy, this stuff is terrible. Absolutely terrible. Then send it back. And I tell you, after you send it back a couple of times, they're going to send you the good stuff. If you take that first load of bad material, they say, hey, this guy take anything. Let's unload all this bad stuff we got hanging around. But if you have them come back several times, pick this material up and send it back, they'll say, good night, only send the good stuff out to this job site. This guy drives you crazy. We're tired of picking this stuff up. Had one student in one class had the perfect solution. First load regardless. Send it back. Now, I've never done that, but it is a little tempting. Another good reason I want you to have an open account is because of cash flow, which is one of the biggest problems in the construction business. In that anything you buy in 1 month, you will normally pay by the 10th of the following month. Anything you buy in June, you would pay for by the 10th of July. And normally, as I mentioned, if you pay by the 10th, you will receive a discount. So as you get down close to the end of the month, you got to be real cautious of these major orders. For example, if you had material shipped up to a job site on June the 30th, it's going to be due and payable within 10 days on July the 10th. Had you waited 1 day to July the 1st, it would not be due and payable until August the 10th, which is about 41 days later. So by waiting 1 day, you're able to hold up payment 41 days. That makes a big difference in your cash flow. Now, I believe if you take care of the work, the money's going to take care of itself. So as you get close to the end of the month, if you need a big load of material, call your material supplier and say, no, listen, I'm not going to get paid for this till it's installed. Will you ship it out to the job site and hold my invoice 2 or 3 days so I don't have to pay for it till the 10th of the next month? And they may say, sure, we'll work with you. But if they say, no, the day we ship it is the day we're going to bill you, then you may want to wait a day or two, because that can make a big difference in your cash flow. Regarding inspecting material or anything on a job site, that's one of the beauties of you being there, in that if they claim they deliver something and when you get out there it's not there, they can always say it was stolen. But if it's still bundled up, you can pretty much tell if they accidentally left off something, if the bands haven't been busted. And I feel like there you have a legitimate complaint. But that is the good part, if you do have the time, which is not always easy, to be there when things are delivered or things are installed, to just do an inspection to make sure everything's okay. This is a real problem in the construction industry, in that, let's say you've got a cabinet sub installing cabinets and countertops, or let's just say it's the sub that does the countertops. And you remember what I say about inspecting the job site. Well, let's assume you're running around like a chicken with his head cut off. You're running behind schedule. You're rushing to the job site. You pull into the subdivision, and the countertop sub passes you, and y'all kind of wave at each other, and you pull up to the home. You walk inside. You go into the kitchen, and beside the kitchen sink, there is a big scratch on the countertop. And you think, good grief. You call the sub up, and he says, when I left that job site, that countertop was perfect. And if you want it replaced, you're going to have to pay for it. Well, I'm telling you, you don't have the right to point your finger at that sub and say, oh, you're lying, you put the scratch in it, I'm not going to pay you, you're going to have to sue me, and yeah. You should have been there. And if you weren't there and caught it before they left, you've got to take responsibility for your screw-ups. These people get real tired of you trying to blame them for all your screw-ups. I know I had a job one time where we were installing hardwood floors, and when I went in there, the sub that was doing the work, when he was putting the finish, for some strange reason, he was barefooted. Now, normally I wouldn't want something like this on a job site, but I thought, what the heck? If he wanted to do it barefooted, that's fine. Well, several days later, when I went into the home after the floor had adequately dried, over beside a French door was a footprint in the finish. Well, I knew who had stepped on the floor, so I called the hardwood floor sub and told him, about seeing the sub barefooted, and beside the French door there was a footprint, and I'm expecting them to repair it and not charge me. And the sub said, no problem. Well, later on the sub called me up and said, listen, we talked to the finisher, and the finisher told us he did not step in that finish, and I'm going to need to charge you to repair it. Boy, I was so irritated, because I knew that sub had stepped in that finish. And I said, well, go ahead and fix it and I'll pay you. But boy, I just grumbled and murmured about that for days. And then one day I had a young man that was doing some security work for me. He walked up to me and we were talking about that unit. And he said, Tom, he said, I forgot to tell you the other day, when they had finished the hardwood floors, I noticed the French door was open, and I took off my shoes to walk in there to shut the French door, and I accidentally stepped on the finish, and I forgot to tell you. So it was not the hardwood floor sub. So I repeat, if you don't see someone do this, or you don't catch them while they're there, take responsibility for your screw-ups and don't point your finger at them. Let me give you a suggestion on how to handle any problems. This is true not only with material suppliers, but even with some of your subs. If you got a problem, I don't want you to fuss and fight with the people down on the lower level. I want you to leapfrog everybody and go to the top, the owner or president of the company, and voice your problem. And 9 times out of 10, that's the person that can handle it the quickest, most efficient, and the easiest way than anybody. I know years ago I was doing a commercial building and we had a heating and air system. And I was having a problem with it, and I talked to the sub on the job, and they were just kind of giving me the runaround. So instead of fussing and fighting with them, I called the local manager and talked to that guy. Felt like he was giving me the runaround. So I leapfrogged him and went to the regional head guy. Felt like he was giving me the runaround. So I called the corporate office. It was somewhere up north. I can't remember exactly where it was. Pennsylvania, I believe. I asked to speak to the president of the corporation. I got to speak to the president. I told the president my problem. I tell you what, he handled my problem so quick. He went over and above the call of duty. He did more than I even wanted, because he was in a position of authority to say, I don't care what it costs, spend it, do whatever is necessary to get this problem handled. Where the person down on the lower level, they don't have that kind of authority. So I repeat, anytime you got a problem, don't fuss and fight with these people down where they can't really do anything. I want you to leapfrog and go to the owner or head of the business, and that's where you're going to get your problem handled the quickest and easiest to your satisfaction. The next thing I want to talk about is hauling material. I want you to understand that just about everything you purchase already has freight figured in it. Most supply houses, if you give them enough notice, they'll deliver one board to that job site if you give them enough notice. And I want you to plan ahead and let them use their trucks and gas to bring that one board to your job site. But I know when I first started building, I used to wear out trucks hauling little loads of material. I know people used to stand on the side of the road and they'd flag me down, and I'd pull over and roll down my window and ask them what they wanted. And they'd say, would you haul us a load of firewood? And I'd look at them and say, oh, I'm not in the hauling business. And they'd say, oh, really? Well, we see you going up and down here all the time hauling stuff. I used to wear out trucks hauling little loads of material. And you know how I finally broke myself of that terrible habit? I sold my truck. And this was back in the day when the Blazer was a big item. I bought a Blazer. I hauled so much in the Blazer, I had to get rid of the Blazer. And the only way I could break myself of this terrible habit was to get rid of the temptation, and that was the truck. So if you think you've got to have a truck to be in the building business, you are vastly mistaken. And I want you to put the pencil to it. It is far cheaper for you to order excessive amounts of material. And even if you can't send the excess back for credit, now we used to just burn it or bury it. Don't do that. Call your local chapter of Habitat for Humanity and give them any excess material. You can write it off on your taxes. It's a good win-win situation. But it is far cheaper to order excessive amounts of material, give the excess to Habitat, than to own, maintain, and operate a pickup truck. Because when you own a pickup truck, you are in the hauling business guaranteed. And if your goal is to save a bunch of money and or earn a bunch of money, let me tell you, you're not going to do it in the hauling business. So get rid of the truck. I got to be honest with you. You know, they got trucks now. They make them so nice. They're like an automobile. You can get a 4-door cab. Boy, the inside is just as good as a car. I mean, they are plush. And I like a truck. And several years ago, I fell back into temptation and I bought a truck. And oh me, I hate to admit it, I fell back in the trap of hauling material. And oh, good night, it's like drugs. I just, I shouldn't have done it. And I'm getting ready to get rid of the truck again because I just was not disciplined enough to do it. So unless you're very, very disciplined, and you keep that truck so pristine you don't want to haul anything in it, then I'm telling you, get rid of the truck. And the next thing I want to just bring your attention to, and I was a little hesitant about talking about this, but I think I'm going to go ahead and mention it. And the reason I was a little hesitant about talking about it is that if you're building your own home and you're pretty much doing this by yourself, there's only so many hours in a day. And you may not have time to really do this, but if you can do kind of a part of it, it would be good. And what I'm talking about is using what we call purchase orders. Now, purchase orders, a lot of you that are in business, you're very familiar with purchase orders, and you can get copies of them at your local supply houses, office supply houses, and you can just fill in the blanks. Or what I like to do, and you'll see it 24/7, a purchase order form that I use that I just kind of put together myself. And you can put together your own form, or you can just keep it real simple. And what it is, when you order material from a supply house, you will always write everything down on a purchase order, or you will indicate that what you're sending to them is on purchase order, and you're going to assign a number to it. Now, if you buy purchase orders in your office supply houses, they already come numbered 1, 2, 3. But I like to put my own number to it, and you can code them any way you want to. And when you call into a supply house, you'll say, I need, 300 linear feet of 2x4, and you'll tell the salesperson that this is PO number or purchase order number 3456, whatever you want to call it. And the salesman will put that purchase order number on the invoice. And then at the end of the month, when you receive an invoice, there should be a purchase order number on it, and you'll correspond that invoice with your purchase order to verify that they are billing you for what you requested. Now, this can be time consuming, and you may not have time to do this. If you become a professional builder, I consider this mandatory, because you are going to be absolutely amazed at how much money you will save, especially if you're building a number of homes by using purchase orders. I remember years ago, I had a salesperson in my class in the construction industry, and he said of the 300 builders he serviced, only 2 of them used purchase orders. I couldn't believe it. And I remember the first time I started using purchase orders, I found all kind of mistakes, and it was normally in the supplier's favor. But just to give you some food for thought, a lot of times you'll be in the field and you'll be short of material, and you will call in an order. And a lot of times at the end of the month, when you receive an invoice, your rough notes will indicate that you ordered something different than they're billing you for. And, purchase orders, if you'll just give them a purchase order number on it and let that correspond to your written note. And if you wanted to, you could follow up with an email or something like this. That can be kind of time consuming. Your purchase orders can help you in that when a load of material is delivered, you can take your purchase order and compare what you ordered with what they delivered. And, some of these guys that load these trucks aren't the smartest humans in the world, and it's real easy for them to leave off a sheet or 2 of plywood, and that's a good chunk of money. And your purchase orders, when you call around, someone will quote you a good price over the phone to get your business. Then at the end of the month, there's no reflection of that good price on the invoice they're billing you for. And then you could go as far as send a letter to all your supply houses stating that every invoice you receive at the end of the month must have a purchase order number on it, or you're not going to pay that invoice. And if you receive an invoice without a PO number on it, you must stand firm and hard and refuse to pay it, and they won't make that mistake again. Another place your purchase order will save you is you cannot imagine in this industry how easy it is to go into a supply house, pick up thousands of dollars worth of material, and say charge it to so-and-so building company, and they'll let you walk out the door with it. Now, don't start your life in crime tomorrow morning, but you just can't believe how crazy this industry is. Well, this purchase order will prohibit your carpenter or someone going in and charging to your account, and you're really not aware of it. If you send a letter to the accounting department of any supplier you're dealing with, also state on there who you are allowing to charge to your account. And this will prohibit just any Tom, Dick, and Harry from walking in and charging to your account. But one of the most important reasons for using purchase orders, if you can develop the time for this, or if you become a professional builder and you have staff that can handle this for you, is by using purchase orders, you will now know from day to day, not month to month, whether you're in budget, earning a profit, or in your case, saving money, or whether you're beginning to go over budget and you're beginning to lose your shirt. And the beauty of the construction industry is that if you can know from day to day that you're beginning to lose money, I'm telling you, you can shop prices, you can cut corners, and you can save the job. If you have to wait till the end of the month to find out that you're over budget, in some cases that could be too late. But that's the real beauty of a purchase order, is it enables you to track your cost on a daily basis. But again, I can see where this would be extremely hard for you to do in just building one home, working by yourself, unless you're just a real workaholic. But I just wanted to plant this seed on purchase orders, because if you do stay in the industry and become a professional builder, I consider it mandatory, and I will talk more about purchase orders in a program that you'll have access to if you decide. Now let's talk about dealing with labor and subcontractors. In this section on dealing with labor and subcontractors, I don't want you to misunderstand anything I'm going to say about dealing with labor and subcontractors, because some of the finest people I've ever met in my life are some of my subs. I consider it a real blessing to know some of the subs that I know. But because you can't judge a horse by its color, and it's hard to tell the good guys from the bad guys, I'm sorry, but you got to treat all the subs the same way. Now, here's what I'm talking about. Just about everyone you hire in this industry, as a general rule. Now, during the course, I'm going to be pointing out how you deal with money on certain subs, but just about everyone you hire in this industry, you will pay them with one check, except these people right here. Your three major subcontractors being the plumber, the heating and air, and the electrician. And then in labor, I'm going to put mason, carpenter, and painter. Now, painter is normally a subcontractor, but I'll just kind of lump him with labor. Now, just about everyone you hire, you will pay them with one check when they finish their job, except the people I just mentioned. They will receive more than one check. Your three major subs, your plumber, your heating and air, your electrician, they will come in during the construction of the job. We call this the rough end. And they will install part of their product, and when they finish the installation of this product, they will receive a rough-in inspection by the city or county inspector. It is their responsibility to get the rough-in inspection in most cases. Now, if you're within the city limits of a city, you deal with the city government. If you're outside the city limits of a city, you deal with the county government. As the home is continued to be built, toward the end of construction, they will come back and finish their job, and we call this the final. And they will receive a final inspection by the city or county inspector. It is their responsibility to get that final inspection in most cases. As a general rule, we pay them 60% of what we owe them after they receive the roofing inspection, and the balance of 40% after they receive the final inspection as a general rule. Now, these numbers are not carved in stone, but they have to do a lot of persuading to get me to vary off these ratios. And just for clarification, on the heating and air system, by the way, we call this HVAC for heating, ventilating, and air conditioning. On the heating and air system, most of you are aware that you've got one or more units that sit inside the home where you change filters. And then you've got one or more units that sit outside the home that may be too loud for you. The heating and air sub must install those units inside the home during the rough-in, along with the ductwork, in order to be paid 60%. If they do not install those units inside the home during the rough-in, we do not pay them 60%. And normally they always install those during the rough-in because they want 60%. Now, I wish I could just take off the top of your heads and pour all these experiences in to save you all this grief, but let me give you an idea of what I'm talking about. I don't care if you're 3 feet tall. I don't care if you're a 90-pound weakling. I don't care if you're handicapped in any way, blind, crippled, or whatever. You will become a man among men in your dealings with the money. And as long as you are fair in your dealings with the money, some of these people, they may yell at you, they may scream at you, they may cuss you, they may throw stuff. But as long as you are fair in your dealings with the money, yes, they may yell and scream and cuss you and throw stuff, but they will never, 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 never hit you. As long as you're not fair and you try and play games with their money, or God forbid you try and beat them out of their money, that day you may find yourself playing by the laws of the jungle and not the laws of the land. And most of these individuals are physically larger and much stronger than anybody listening to these CDs. So I highly recommend you don't do that. Let me give you some examples. The plumber comes up on Friday, wants to get paid. Did you get your inspection? No, I'm not going to pay you. Man, he's going to have a duct fit right there in front of you. Don't deprive that poor man of that duct fit. He's frustrated. He needs the money and you're not paying him. I've stood there and watched them roll around in the floor before, but don't you dare pay them that money. Once you pay them that money, you've killed all their incentive to get that rough-in inspection. The plumber comes up on Friday, wants to get paid. Did you get your inspection? Yes. Was it approved? No, I'm not going to pay you. Oh, he'll have a fit over that. And what will happen, the inspector will either sign the permit card approved, or they'll leave a sticker on the job saying approved, or they'll leave a card out there saying approved. And if you don't see anything like this, you better call the inspector up and verify, was it approved? Now, I hate to say this, but you can't take the sub's word for it. I don't care if it's your own brother, someone professing to be a born-again Christian, whoever. You better verify the inspection was passed and approved before you dare pay the sub. And when it comes to this money, you've got to become so cold and cruel and calloused and hard-hearted, because you're going to hear stories of sick children, pregnant women, dying mothers. And you've got to become so cold and cruel and calloused and hard-hearted and not pay the sub until the job is completed according to the agreement. And let me tell you, that is tough, because many of these people, they are absolute professionals at getting that money out of you. And it takes an extremely strong will and character to resist that temptation. That's why starting out, I can't imagine you having a thick enough skin to deal with this unless you were abused as a child. So give up this ego of being the owner, the builder, and create this unknown entity, this third party. It could be your spouse that controls all the money. so that on any given payday, you can stand there and say, now listen, these people over here that control the money, they say, if you don't do this, I can't pay you. It's not me, it's them. Because when the buck stops with you, that is a tough place to be on Friday. But I've stood there in the face of the storm, all kind of stuff happening around me while they get out of their system. I remember a large brick mason I was dealing with one time. I mean, this guy was like 6'6", weighed 300 pounds. He looked like a pro ball player. And boy, he was jumping around, swinging his fist, saying, I thrive on violence. Boy, he was a big guy too. Now, you ladies, you don't need to be quite as concerned with this. Matter of fact, I really hate to admit this, but I wish they'd pass a law that you women couldn't be home builders. Because these guys do stuff for you for free. They charge me all kind of money for it. It's not fair what you women get away with. I'm out baking cookies, everything, to stay up with you. It drives me crazy. But the only control you have is the money. And you know, even though I've developed a thick skin around this, over the years, it is still not quite thick enough. And I still have to learn my lesson about every 5 years. I learned it about 5 years ago, so any day now I'm ready. But I remember one time I had a concrete finisher. This is an individual that does concrete work. And I got to know this man very well. I tell you, I loved him like a brother. Now, he preached on the weekends. Now, that should have warned me right there. But he got ahead of me $6,000 on a job. And halfway through the job, he took off, left town, filed bankruptcy, didn't finish the job, didn't pay everybody involved. So I never got my money back. He never finished the job. I'm telling you, every single time I get nice with the money, I get burned. I want to be nice with the money. I want to be the good guy with the money. I want to be benevolent with the money. And every single time I'm nice with the money, I get burned. Therefore, I cannot be nice with the money. Because every single time I'm nice with the money, I get burned. I just want to stress this to you like crazy. I've had situations where I needed to be at 10 places at the same time. I'm on a job site. A sub has just 10 more minutes to go to finish, and I don't want to come back to pay him. And I'll just say, now you're going to stay here and finish this, aren't you? Oh, yeah. And I'll pay him and head out because I got to be somewhere else. And I'm sure as soon as I was out of sight, I know as soon as I was out of sight, they took off and never finished the last 10 minutes. After receiving payment. It just drives you crazy. Absolutely crazy. So you have got to be tough with the money. Now, I will also tell you this. I've got subs that I have dealt with for years. They're family. And I will tell you, if they came to me wanting money, what I've learned to do over the years is if a sub I know and I trust and I really like, I will give them money. Now, I don't tell them I'm giving them the money. I'll say, okay, I'll loan you this money. But in my mind, I am giving them this money. And then that way, if they never pay me back, that's okay. In my mind, I gave it to them. It was a gift. So I'm not disappointed. I remember an old fella taught me years ago. He said, if you ever want to get rid of someone, loan them $20. There's a lot of truth in that. But if you give them money with the idea you're going to get it back, boy, you're going to be very disappointed. Very disappointed. And I wouldn't do that if I were you. If you want to give it to them, the reason why you pay the mason, carpenter, and painter with more than one check is because their job normally takes more than a week or longer than a week. And most of these crews, they're paid weekly. Not all of them, but most of them. They're paid at the end of the week. You will find that the head person you deal with, like the lead carpenter or lead painter or lead mason or whatever, they'll kind of wait on their money, but they've got a payroll they need to meet. And as long as they can pay their help, they're happy campers. And they'll wait on the bulk of the money till the job is completely finished. Now, when I say the job is finished, unlike commercial work where they will retain like 10% until the entire job is finished, you normally don't see that in residential construction. I've had some students say, well, that's how I'm going to run my business. I'm telling you, in residential, if you tell them you're going to retain 10% till the entire home is completely finished, most of the subs probably won't work for you. But you can find that out yourself. So when they finish their job, we'll pay them everything they owe. But in the interim, we give them partial payments. We call them draws, because I want to help them with their payroll. If they can't pay their men on Friday, they may not be there on Monday. And my job is not stop construction, it's get this home built. So let me give you some ideas of what goes through my head anytime I'm getting ready to make a partial payment. We call it a draw. Let's say a carpenter comes up on Friday and he wants a draw of $4,000. Now, the big question I will ask and answer to myself is, okay, Mr. Carpenter, once I pay you this money, what will happen if I never see you again? And let me tell you, there's going to be people you will pay and you will never see again. To this day, there are several people I still wonder whatever happened to them. I have no idea. So the question you must ask and answer is, how much money will it take to finish this job? Not how much work have you done, how much money will it take to finish this job? Now, sometimes this is real easy to figure. Sometimes this can be real tricky, especially if you've had no prior experience. So if I calculate it's going to take X number of dollars to finish the job, and so I can see my way clear on $4,000, I'll give him $4,000. But if I go through the calculations and all I see I can give him is $3,000, that's all I'm going to give him. Now, I'll try to work out a compromise with him. I want to help him with his payroll. I want to be fair. I want to leave enough money to finish the job. It's a real juggling act. Good luck. And if you look at the sub and tell them that your thought pattern is, I want to leave enough money to finish the job in case I never see you again, the sub's going to look at you with this hurt look like, oh, you don't trust me. Oh, no. It has nothing to do with trust. What if I pay you this Friday and this weekend you go out and get killed? See, they relate to that. See, if you get killed, I'll never see you again. And they kind of think, oh yeah, well, that's true. But this can be kind of tricky because there are people like the mason, for example, and there's so many areas in the industry, and I'll give you tips on this when we actually build the home, that the 20-80 rule is very prevalent. It takes 80% of the time to do 20% of the work and 20% of the time to do 80% of the work. And masons, for example, they love to get in there on these low, easy stuff. And if they've got a lot of walls that have very few doors and windows in them, you cannot imagine how many bricks a mason can lay in a given day. And the mason is paid based on the quantity of bricks they lay. So technically, at the end of the week, if they've done all the low, easy stuff, they are due what would appear to be a lot of money. And if you give them all that money, the mason in most cases is going to be gone, because these high walls, these high places, these arches, these columns, that's where the bulk of the time is spent. And if that mason leaves and you have to get another mason out there to do these high walls, these high places, these columns and arches, they will charge you an arm and a leg, and you have got to pay it. So you've got to, all I want to do is just help them a little bit with their payroll, but they're not going to get the bulk of their money until they finish the job. So here's one thing that I do that has really helped me out. First of all, if they were supposed to be there on Monday and didn't show up till Thursday, don't be holding your hand out on Friday wanting a big check. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. And if they spent most of the time period correcting mistakes that they made, I'm sorry, I'm not going to pay them for that. However, if they had a certain amount of men there and they got a certain amount of work done, I want to help them with their payroll as much as I can. So here's one thing that has really helped me quite a bit. By asking a few dumb questions, you can get a feel for what people are paid in this industry. And even though I'll mention that you never pay anyone by the hour, a lot of these head guys, they pay their guys by the hour, possibly, or so much a day. And by asking a few dumb questions, you can kind of get a feel for what these people are paid. So what I'll do is I will keep a little rough job diary of what subs are on a job on a given day, how many men are there or women, and how many hours they worked. And what I will try and do is kind of second guess their payroll. So at the end of the week, based on my job diary on how many people were there and how many hours they worked, I roughly will figure, let's say your payroll is $1,500. And if they come up and say they want $1,500, then, that's fine. I'll work with them. But if they come up and say they want $5,000, no way. I'll help you out with your basic payroll, get you through this week, but the bulk of the money you're not going to get until we're completely finished. And if you want to tell the sub up front how you're going to be doing this, that's a good thing to do because you don't like surprises on payday.